moderators and speakers who presented or participated in yesterday's agenda. The first day of the seminar, we talked about the importance of safety culture and how is that embedded within SMS and SSP. And then we had our first panel about just culture and how is just culture not a concept, but is a behavior that's embedded within our systems. Mr. Naveen also spoke from the NTSC, spoke about the green stones, which he referred to the serious incident and how we can deal with them and manage them to prevent accidents. We concluded our first day with the panel around risk management from different concepts, from insurance to OEM and also operators and regulator. Yes, it's working now. So today we have two presentations and two panels. We'll start with our colleague Marsh, and then we'll move to the first panel of the day, which is around safety integration, its challenges and synergies. And then we have our second presentation regarding fatigue management in MROs, which is one of the things that was highlighted in the RASG meeting on a regional level as a regional issue in the MENA area. Then we have our colleague from SANS, who will be talking about fatigue management from an ATC perspective. And then we will conclude the day with the final panel of the seminar around risk complexity in GA operation. I will switch to Arabic now. Just to let you know, جميعا في translation من الزملاء من نادي الطيران. إذا حب أحد يستخدمها، السماعات اللي موجودة في الطاولات تقدرون تستخدمونها. Thank you all. Let's start our day with our colleagues from Marsh, Adam and Elson. Please join us to welcome them.
So for those who were not here yesterday, my name is Adam Johns. I'm briefly going to set the scene for the topic this morning of Beyond Insurance, a holistic approach to aviation risk management. And then I'll hand over to my colleague Phil Elson, who's going to share with you a real case study to bring the topic to life. I'm an aviation safety specialist, and my colleague Phil is a senior aviation insurance broker. So together we can share with you a holistic view on what good aviation risk management looks like. So, in aviation, safety risk management, or SRM, goes beyond buying insurance to protect against financial loss. We call this risk before insurance within Marsh. And as I'm sure you're all aware, SRM starts with identifying hazards across all aviation operations. Risks are then assessed by their likelihood and impact on safety and business continuity. Intolerable risks are mitigated by updating controls, procedures, and technologies to reduce them to as low as reasonably practicable through an ongoing process. But aviation is complex and dynamic, so a holistic approach is essential. Effective SRM enhances safety, supports compliance, and protects people. But it also builds resilience, which is the ability to anticipate, respond to, and recover from disruptions, whether they be operational, financial, or reputational. Continuous monitoring and improvement keeps SRM effective by regularly reviewing controls, analyzing incidents, and adapting to new threats. Organizations strengthen safety and resilience proactively rather than reactively. So now let's broaden the view to enterprise risk management, or ERM. So in my personal experience, whilst aviation excels in managing safety and operational risks, it often struggles to manage total business risk in an integrated way. ERM brings together all risks to support better decisions within an organization's risk appetite. From an insurer's perspective, effective ERM is a partnership. Companies with strong risk controls and proactive ERM improve their risk profile, leading to better insurance terms and reduced risk costs. Integrating SRM into ERM prevents siloed risk management and aligns the process with strategic goals. It helps allocate resources effectively and prepares the organization to manage the wider impacts of safety incidents. Now I'll hand over to Phil, who's going to share with you an anonymized case study showing how ERM improved the risk profile and resilience for one particular organization.
Good morning, everyone. Adam ran through what enterprise risk management is and why you should do it to the best of your ability. Now I'm going to talk about how insurers actually view ERM. And I thought about calling up underwriters back in London last week to ask them what they thought. But I didn't do that, and I didn't do it for a reason. While some would no doubt be able to demonstrate a very clear understanding of ERM, I suspect a few would be looking it up on Google. And then you would now be hearing their formal corporate answers, and I'm sure they would all sound good, but it wouldn't necessarily give you the most accurate picture of reality. Because whether they all know about the finer points of ERM or not, they can all understand it intuitively because they're all humans. And while aviation insurance at first glance is a numbers business, the reality is it's really a people business, and people react on emotion. Do they like something or not? Does it feel right? And if something does feel right, we tend to base our decisions on those feelings, then back them up with facts that support essentially what we've already decided. To put this into context of conveying ERM to insurers, at its heart, it's about building up narrative, momentum, and a positive feeling. So rather than asking those aviation insurers for perhaps somewhat bland answers, their prepared answers, it's really best to illustrate how they feel about ERM with a story. So I'm going to tell you a story, and it's a true story. And at its core, it's about ERM, and in this case, the transformation of a real company's overall safety culture. And it's relevant to many companies represented at this event, and in fact, it's almost certainly more relevant than perhaps some of you may be initially thinking at this moment. Now, let me take a quick step back for a second. My name is Phil Elson. I work for Marsh, which is the world's largest insurance broker. Specifically, I'm a managing director of Marsh's aviation practice, and I've been working in aviation insurance since 1988. Started in London, spent 15 years in New York, and I've been back in the UK since 2009 in the international marketplace. Now, I am not a safety and risk management expert like Adam, but I do have quite a bit of experience working with clients as to how best represent them in the aviation insurance marketplace. So as I said, my story is going to focus on the second part of our talk, which is the difference it can make for you and your company if you really put effort into optimizing how your ERM is perceived by insurers. So my story begins. So, once upon a time, not so long ago, and not so far away from this part of the world, there is a significant commercial aircraft operator, and we'll call them XYZ Jets. And they experienced 3 total losses in just one policy period, and they were worried. In fact, they were very worried. And that was for a number of reasons, but one of the reasons was because they knew that their insurance premium was going to jump up at renewal. And there really didn't seem to be any way around this. It was inevitable. You see, the 3 total losses had taken place in 3 different countries, and they were caused by 3 entirely different scenarios. And apart from that, XYZ Jets had also been suffering a number of smaller attritional losses. So that's the problem they faced. So at this point, as the slide comes up, I want to talk for a moment about aviation insurance broking theory, right? Now, if all three total losses had the same cause, or they'd happened at the same location, it would have been easy for XYZ, or at least easier. They could have then said to their insurers, well, look, we've identified the underlying problem, it's all been ring-fenced, and we've taken corrective action. And now insurers can be comfortable that losses like these are never going to happen again. But XYZ's situation didn't look like that. It looked more like this. So what on earth were they going to tell their insurers to try and get the best deal on their insurance at the renewal? So I'm going to take you into a bit of a dive into what they were doing regarding ERM. Well, thankfully, they had actually been working extremely hard over the preceding couple of years to tighten up the management and risk management of their business in many ways. Now, their insurance broker had been taking studious notes every time he met them, and he had jotted down a number of safety initiatives, risk management approaches, and just general improvements that XYZ had been working on. But there was still no coherent narrative. So he got XYZ's senior management team to agree to work with him on this. And together, they started by identifying 42 areas of their business in which XYZ had made some degree of operational and or risk management improvement. So what had XYZ been doing? Now don't worry, I'm not going to go through all 42 of these, but I will mention some. Well, firstly, they got an outside firm of experts to conduct a company-wide safety culture audit using quantitative and qualitative methods. And for example, this highlighted governance issues around needing to improve ownership, oversight and structure, as well as resource issues around recruitment and skill development. Regarding people, XYZ strengthened their senior management team. They created a network of safety managers. They tightened up their hiring and training processes. They improved the feedback they got from employees. There were programs for the crews around fatigue, psychological assistance and nutrition. They set up their first internal annual safety conference, and ever since then they've been doing it every year, and it's very successful. They instigated new monthly safety meetings. They moved their back offices closer to the operational side of the business. Internal communication improved as well, up and down the company, from the top down and from the bottom up, and then across different types of operation and also across different geographies in which they operated. And also, you see, they were getting more connected with various outside industry-wide forums. What else? I'll list a few. Improvements to their SMS and ERP, implementing Just Culture and Stop Work Authority, investing in new tools, hardware, software and procedures, all designed to reduce accidents. Removing a series of old, separate, siloed, legacy IT systems and replacing them with new, singular, streamlined, group-wide systems. For example, regarding safety reporting, what they did gave them better data and ensured that the right information got to the right groups of people without drowning everyone in paperwork. They started to move from reactively telling themselves about losses that had already happened to proactively reporting on incidents and near misses. Let's talk about their fleet. Well, the fleet was growing, it was modernizing, it was being rationalized, so fewer makes and models of aircraft. Their insurance broker helped them tighten up their standard contractual wording so that it minimized their liability while maximizing the contractual protection that they received from others. The insurance broker, by the way, also gave them insurance-related contractual training, which they found very useful. And finally, let's discuss financial strength. It was important to tell insurers about winning new contracts and expanding existing ones, because financial strength and commercial growth from the insurer's perspective meant two things. They're going to be around for a long time to pay insurers more and more premium, so insurers can afford to give them a lower rate. And it's implicit that financially strong companies don't need to cut corners on safety, so the insurers can expect that they're going to be having a better and better loss record. In conclusion, when you list all the things that XYZ were doing, it was all very comprehensive, a holistic ERM approach that was bringing about fundamental change, albeit with a very natural time lag between starting an initiative, getting that initiative fully implemented, and then seeing the positive results. So how did XYZ convey its messaging to ERM to insurers? Look at this. XYZ and their broker listed all 42 initiatives in a row in that table, and then they wrote little summaries of each one. And then across in the columns, that was the timeline. So there was quarters, Q1, Q2, 3, 4, and on to the next year. So that's time going across there, right? And then they superimposed the 3 total losses in the middle of that timeline. That's the 3 red lines there. Lastly, they added a color-coded heat map to show how each initiative had been progressing. Amber meant that a particular initiative hadn't started yet. Light blue meant the initiative was in its infancy, through to mid blue, and then so on until you get to dark blue for the more well-established safety and risk management initiatives. And at that point, that is where the magic happened. The magic happened for XYZ, and it happened for their insurers. Because if you covered up the right-hand side of that page, after the total losses, nearly all of the initiatives in the past were either amber or light blue. So that was the company that insurers were insuring at the time of the total losses, i.e., a lot of their safety and risk management initiatives were either had not been started or were in their infancy. But if you go and only look at the future, you can see that everything there is in mid blue or dark blue. All of these initiatives are more mature. And what that shows you is that those insurers going forward after those 3 total losses, that's the risk that they were going to be taking on at renewal, which was a far stronger and safer company than it had ever been before. And it was demonstrably so. Look, this is how insurers reacted. They absolutely loved it. They all said they'd never seen a risk presented in this way before. Every one of them leaned in. They even fully accepted the fact that there was clearly going to be time lags between implementing a risk management related strategy and reaping the benefits. Now they believed in XYZ Jets. They loved the narrative, they loved the momentum, and they loved the feeling that XYZ Jets had given them. So here's the big question. What ended up happening at XYZ's next insurance renewal? Well, despite 3 total losses in the expiring policy period, XYZ and their broker achieved an as-expiring renewal. Nobody had expected that. The client was ecstatic. Now, when XYZ see their insurers, their underwriters always ask them for an update on their ERM. And they have no problem if some of the initiatives are moving slower than had hoped, because, again, XYZ's insurers are now believers. So XYZ Jets achieved a major psychic shift in how insurers perceived them, and it was all thanks to doing ERM, yes, but also in making sure that it was thoroughly explained to their insurers. And something else to consider, if you're sitting here thinking that we've never had a loss, this doesn't really apply to me, I would disagree, and I would disagree for 2 reasons. Number 1, not having a loss still doesn't guarantee you the best rates that you could get if you put additional effort into presenting your ERM to insurers. And secondly, you buy insurance because you might have a loss. And if you do have one, insurers who have bought into your ERM will treat you better than if they knew nothing about it. And now I want to turn my attention to your situation. Let me ask you a question. Do your insurers fully understand just how good you are? Because doing enterprise risk management is great. Conveying it well to those who matter is even better. Let's talk about the situation you're in here in Saudi Arabia, because Saudi Arabia is different from many other countries. Here's you. You're doing everything you can with ERM. You're firing on all cylinders. Because of that, you're happy. But you've got to convey that message to your local insurance broker. Hang on, he's got to talk to the local insurer. That local insurer may then have to talk to the local reinsurance broker, and they've got to talk to the wholesale reinsurance broker that could be maybe in London. And then they have got to talk to the ultimate people, the specialist aviation reinsurers, and they're in London, they're in Europe, they're in the Middle East, they're all over the world. How do they feel about you? Did your message get conveyed all the way through that chain? It's important. It's important because they set your premium and pay your claims. So if they don't fully understand you, you're not going to get the best deal. So, more questions. How many reinsurers have you met? Would you recognize them if they were sat next to us in this room? And if you look back over the last few years, how well do you think you're doing in getting your message around ERM across to those reinsurers? Don't forget, each underwriter has dozens of risks that cross their desk each week, hundreds per year, coming in from maybe 200 individual brokers representing maybe over 30 different broking companies. They have a short amount of time to assess your company before moving on to the next underwriting submission. And if these underwriters have a range of rates, right, for what they can offer to a business jet operator, a helicopter operator, a drone operator, are you getting the best rates or are you getting the not so good rates? But if all they know about you is your basic information, your year, make, model, reg number, agreed value, limit of liability, maybe where you fly, usage types, hours, maybe load factors, a loss run, your reinsurers then don't really know you as well as they could. And they certainly won't know that the work you are putting into your ERM means that you should actually be getting a better premium from them, right? I would urge you to think carefully about how you can partner more effectively with your local insurance broker, whoever they are, to really make sure that everyone in your insurance chain sees the great work you're doing now about ERM. Because to cut to the chase about how insurers view ERM, it's either nothing, right, because they've never been told about it, or it's everything, like in my example about XYZ. And ERM is at the absolute core of their understanding of your risk. Because if you can build a strong narrative around ERM for the insurance world, you will quickly gain momentum. Insurers will develop very positive feelings about your company, and they will then positively differentiate you with better insurance deals. And ultimately, you will finally be able to feel totally comfortable that you are regularly obtaining the best possible renewal premiums, policy coverages, and claims handling outcomes from your insurers and reinsurers. And one last slide to leave you with, a couple of last thoughts. If Adam and I could leave you with just 3 things to remember from this morning's session, it would be this. Number 1, do ERM to the best of your ability. It's an end in itself, it's very worthwhile. Number 2, then convey that message to those that matter, your insurers and reinsurers. Get them to build up that momentum and feeling and narrative. And number 3, if you do those 2 things, you maximize your probability of getting the best coverage, pricing, and outcome from your insurers. Thank you very much for your time.